The original owner's parents have both died. Great, this identity is sure to thrive in this world. Keywords of the novel. Invincible Little Blacksmith. No pop-ups. Invincible Little Blacksmith TXT Complete Collection Download. Invincible Little Blacksmith Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Almost Boxing on the Ground, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Help. Speaking of a height of 300 meters, according to Newton's law and air resistance, it takes at most 10 seconds to land, but how can one feel that it takes 10 minutes to land? Chin, you couldn't figure out what was going on inside. Are you already dead? Hey, how did my body weaken? Chin Yu's body was like a powder, slowly disappearing, leaving only a transparent void. Well, it should be dead. The soul is now falling into hell, Chin Yu's brain thought. Holy Dynasty, Purple Cloud City. 2 men were thrown out of the luxurious mansion of the Jiang family and fell heavily to the ground, causing dust to fly on the ground. 2 men, one middle-aged and the other upright and youthful, sat slumped on the ground with a helpless face. The young man lay quietly on the street, pale, breathing weakly, unconscious. The middle-aged man was still crying and pleading, looking like a wronged and resentful woman. Help me, aren't you dead? Why is the feeling of falling so real now? Chin Yu finally saw the ground, and the terrifying feeling of parachuting appeared again. Get out of the way, Chin Yu kept shouting. This real feeling had to make Chin Yu feel like she wasn't dead yet, and naturally didn't want to hit the pedestrians. But no matter how much they shouted, the people on the ground didn't react at all. With a bump sound, only the sound Chin Yu heard herself proved that she had landed. Chin Yu's soul was possessed by this unconscious young man, but the prolonged descent had already tormented her mentally. In addition, the original owner's weak and sickly body made her only able to lie unconscious. My eyes are constantly open and closed, looking vaguely at everything around me, and my ears can only hear vague sounds. Chin Yu tried to concentrate and imagine what had just happened. More than 10 minutes ago, he was still pushing the limits of modern society and signed up to participate in the 300-meter skydiving. After various physical examinations and professional training, I finally realized my dream of skydiving. Unfortunately, my own parachute malfunctioned and could not be opened. Before I could give a negative review, I inexplicably came here. According to common sense, it is 300 meters high and there is no hope of survival. However, Chin Yu can clearly feel the true existence of this world. Is this the legendary hell? At this moment, a shrew crossed her waist and cursed loudly, "Get out of the Jiang family for me. Our Jiang family doesn't need waste like you two." The middle-aged man looked aggrieved and said, "Madam, don't worry. At least I have been working diligently for the Jiang family for 20 years. I can't just take a break." The shrew muttered incessantly, "Diligent and hard-working. Look at Brother Wang next door, who is a man who earns money in business, and his son who becomes a cavalry captain in the army. He has both wealth and power. Look at you, this useless person. Besides weaving clothes and cooking, what else can you do? Why is there such a big difference between being a son-in-law?" A roar came from the nearby courtyard. "Jiang family, don't hit people in the face, you know." Chin Yu, in a daze, wondered why there were so many backdoors in this world. Keep your mind slightly clear, as the thoughts of the original owner flood into your mind. The original owner's name was the same as his own, also known as Chin Yu, with the courtesy name Guangchuan. At the age of 14, he joined the Jiang family and excelled in his studies since childhood. The Jiang family was wealthy in business but had no power, and valued Chin Yu's knowledge. At the age of 10, they engaged. The reason why Chin Yu got engaged at the age of 10 is because it was also the most brilliant year for Chin Yu. At the age of 8, he read the 4 books and 5 classics proficiently, and at the age of 10, he wrote good limericks, becoming the hope of the whole village. Due to family poverty, he entered the Jiang family at the age of 14, failed the scientific examination at the age of 15, failed the scientific examination at the age of 18, and failed the scientific examination at the age of 20.1. He is still just a poor scholar, and his parents have also passed away during this period. From the hope of the whole village to the joke of the whole village, Qin fell into a slump and fell seriously ill. The Jiang family saw that Qin was already a useless person and kept taking a leave of absence, throwing him out of the door. Following him was Qin father, in-law, named Su Cheng, who had a very similar background to Qin. He entered the Jiang family and gave birth to a son and a daughter. However, his son and young woman died young, and Jiang's wife was unable to bear children. Su Cheng also became a useless person. For a moment, Qin forcefully inserted the memories of the original owner for 21 years into his mind. Qin had a splitting headache, but he also realized that his environment was not hell, but the purple cloud city of the Holy Kingdom. After learning about her background, Qin also understood that she had traveled to this different world. Suddenly, Qin mind flashed with the crazy man in the world. While heading to the skydiving club, he met a messy middle-aged man who was pestering him to promote novels that could make him travel to the world of novels. Qin was afraid of wasting time and spent 10 yuan to buy any book, so he hurriedly rushed to the skydiving club. At that time, I only briefly glanced at the cover of the novel, which had a brief introduction. Xinghua, Qin, sick-hating, and monsters, Holy Kingdom. Purple Cloud City. My grass, it's really the world of novels, Qin sighed. The first sentence in my heart was to scold the crazy seller of the novel. The protagonist in this novel is too sad and almost ends up in a box. However, the only thing that made Qin happy was that the original protagonist's parents had both died and he was alone. It is well known that such an identity will become a great treasure in the novel in the future. At this moment, the crazy man's words came to mind. This novel has no protagonist, so a novel without a protagonist is still called a novel. Have you been waiting for yourself all this time? Well, it should be like this. The world of novels. Is there a system? System Dad, can System Dad hear me? Give me a squeak when you hear it. Qin shouted inwardly. Half a day passed and no one replied, grass. How can I live without a system? Su Cheng still pleaded bitterly, Madam, for the sake of our daughter's face, let's leave me at the Jiang family. Mrs. Jiang remained aggressive and said, I still have the face to say that if it weren't for you, our daughter would have married into a wealthy family long ago and become a dragon and phoenix among people. That's right. Although the Jiang family has money, they don't have power. The high-profit business in the officialdom is never their turn, and the money they earn is also hard work. Su Cheng is just an honest scholar who doesn't know how to do business, so all his business is managed by the Jiang family. The Jiang family originally planned to use Su Cheng to give birth to 10 or 8 sons for the Jiang family. They would all study, practice martial arts, and become officials in the future. However, they were not up to par and only gave birth to 1 son and 1 daughter, so they could no longer have children. Their son also died young. Later, Su Cheng, who had many years of experience in breaking into the family, persuaded Mrs. Jiang to emulate Brother Wang next door and recruit a talented and knowledgeable young man as a son-in-law to provide for him well. By the time my uncle became famous, the Jiang family would have achieved great success. Mrs. Jiang felt very reasonable and allowed her daughter to follow her old path. Finally, I valued Qin Yu's profound knowledge and spoke well of him after getting rid of many connections. Only then did I obtain the consent of Qin Yu's parents and let Qin Yu join the Jiang family. When Qin Yu ascends the throne, the Jiang family's business will also thrive. Unfortunately, the illusions of the Jiang family were shattered time and time again by Qin Yu's failure. Fortunately, Qin Yu had no children with his own daughter, which was also the rule given by Mrs. Jiang to Qin Yu. Only by obtaining an official position can they have the same sex. Now Qin Yu is also a dying person, with no hope left. The Jiang family vented all their anger on these two sons-in-law, and in a fit of anger, they both rested and were driven out of the Jiang family. They left their homes clean and allowed themselves to fend for themselves. Su Cheng, with a runny nose and tears, looked at Qin Yu lying on the ground, feeling powerless to salvage the current situation. Let's go find that the Jiang family can't accommodate us anymore. The door of the Jiang family closed tightly with a clang, ignoring the son-in-law couple. Chapter 2. Almost boxing on the ground, 2. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Although Qin Yu lacks strength, her consciousness is now clear, and this is the rhythm of landing into a box. The people around sighed one after another, the Jiang family is too powerful. When Qin Yu was a genius, he respected them like his own father, but now he is useless and kicks them away. It's not the Jiang family's fault. With Su Cheng's vivid example, we can't expect this sick seedling in the future. People are almost dead, at least we can bury them. You don't know, Qin Yu is very unlucky. After he came, the business of the Jiang family has been declining day by day. Everything was said in the crowd, some were regretful, some were angry, and some felt it was reasonable. These words all got into Qin Yu's ears. Su Cheng carried Qin Yu on his back and begged for help from his former friends, but unfortunately, he rarely went out like a lady from a wealthy family, and had very few sturdy friends. These friends are also part of the Jiang family's relationship, and in exchange, they are all closed doors. Helplessly, Su Cheng carried Qin Yu on his back and slowly walked towards the outside of the city. Everyone with a clear eye understood that Su Cheng had suffered a heavy blow and was likely seeking death. He also had a companion on the Huangquan road. Qin Yu wanted to speak, but her body was too weak to even speak. As the evening approached, the setting sun pulled the two desolate figures away, as if the sun also wanted to push them into the darkness. Su Cheng still carried Qin Yu on his back and walked step by step towards the outside of the city. Su Cheng felt like a sinner. Not only did he delay his daughter, but even though her daughter didn't like him, he also delayed his uncle. Although his uncle didn't like him, the cause of the situation was all his own. The more Su Cheng wandered away, the cooler he felt. He felt like he had destroyed the Jiang family and this young couple. He was the culprit and had no other choice. Looking down at the strap around my waist, well, it's quite sturdy. Find a better crooked neck tree to end my sinful life. Qin Yu lay on Su Cheng's back, feeling the man sobbing all along. She couldn't help but think that my father-in-law was trying to lead me to death. Did you just cross over and die before you could come back to life again? The plot is not right. I tried hard to get myself to speak, but the original owner was too weak. Su Cheng walked up to the city gate, where the sky was already dark. He looked up at the 3 Shanghai city gate, panting for breath. After walking out, he was relieved. Uncle, it's all me who caused you trouble. Remember not to be a son-in-law in the next life. Su Cheng murmured. Qin Yu couldn't speak now, but she cursed inwardly, I wanted to die as soon as I arrived, so you can't save me. When I recover from my illness, it will be the time for me to cheat. Unfortunately, Su Cheng couldn't hear Qin Yu's voice, and his intention to seek death had been determined. Su Cheng was about to step out of the city gate when the guards above the city wall sounded the horn to close the gate. The 2 rows of soldiers guarding the gate worked together to slowly close it. Su Cheng looked at the closed city gate in frustration and said, Don't close it yet, let's go out. A soldier in bamboo armor looked at Su Cheng with confusion as he carried an unconscious man on his back and said, You sure has passed. If you want to leave the city, you need official documents at or above the county level. Do you have them? Su Cheng said helplessly, No. There are no entertainment activities in this world after dark, so the city gates were closed early for the safety of the city. The soldier said rudely, If not, let's talk about it tomorrow morning. Su Cheng begged, can you please accommodate me? We really have something to do when we leave the city. The soldier's eyes became greedy as he touched his chin with both hands and said, accommodation is not impossible. Su Ching knew what this look meant, it was asking for benefits, after all, he couldn't trouble the official to open the door for free. With one hand dragging Qin Yu behind her back and the other hand touching her arms, it was a pity that she was penniless. The soldier saw that Su Ching couldn't get a penny out and said angrily, come back tomorrow. Su Ching continued to plead, Sir, we are going out to commit suicide. It is a legitimate matter. Please take it easy. If we succeed, we will personally thank you someday. The soldier, upon hearing that he had committed suicide and wanted to personally thank him in the future, broke out in a cold sweat on his back and cursed the old man for being sick. With a big wave of his hand, he said, rules are rules. No one should leave the city gate without official documents. Upon hearing these words, Qin Yu was speechless. This father in-law had no intelligence and even came to thank him for successfully committing suicide. However, fortunately, he did not allow himself to leave the city. Once he left the city, it would really be the end of the story. But now it's just autumn, hot during the day and cold at night. Although I can't use the belt around Su Cheng's waist, at least this night I can freeze Qin Yu to death and have a big ending. The hope ignited by Qin Yugang has been shattered again. Feeling lost, Su Cheng walked step by step and saw the unnamed lake ahead. It was indeed Huang Tian who committed suicide, and the opportunity came again. Su Cheng sneered, this place is also good. Su Cheng quickly came to the lake with Qin Yu on his back and said, Auntie, let's end here. As we are young, I'll throw you in first, and then I'll jump. Remember to wait for me on the road. Don't. Qin Yu shouted inwardly. Just at the critical moment, Su Cheng shouted from behind, Master Su. Su Cheng turned to look at an old man sweating profusely and wondered, are you? The old man approached and asked, Master Su, are you carrying Qin Yu Qin Gongzi? Su Cheng didn't know the old man and said, exactly. Who are you, brother? The old man breathed a sigh of relief and said, I am a blacksmith from Dongqing district. My name is Wang Taizhu, and others call me Wang Matzi. Su Cheng looked at Wang Matzi and said, you don't have any marks on your face either. My father had this nickname on his face, and later he also got it. The title of emotional King Matzi is still hereditary. Su Cheng didn't know why Wang Matzi came over and said, Matzi, what are you asking me for? Do I remember knowing you? Wang Matzi said, it's okay if you don't know me. I know Qin Yu enough. I accidentally heard about your family today. Qin Yu's father has been kind to me for saving my life, and I'm worried that you won't take it seriously. I've been inquiring all the way and finally found you. Su Chingchong breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out he was helping Qin Yu. It seems that Qin Yu won't die today, but what should he do? Continuing suicide. Wang Matzi forcefully picked up Qin Yu and carried him on his back, inviting Su Ching back to his home. Wang Matzi walked with Qin Yu on his back and said, when I went to sell kitchen knives in the countryside a few years ago, when I encountered danger, it was Mr. Qin who saved me and never had a chance to repay me. Later, I heard that you two were kicked out and searched half the city to find you. Finally, I have repaid Mr. Qin's life-saving kindness. Qin Yu lay on Wang Matzi's back, thinking in a daze of a person who used to sharpen scissors and chop kitchen knives at home when she was young. Emotions were this person, and Qin Yu's mind was filled with hope of survival. It seemed that having the protagonist's aura would not lead to death. Qin Yu could clearly feel Wang Matzi's solid arms, and his body still emitted the smell of coal and iron filings, which was the same as when he interned at the steel plant, but this time there was also a lot of sweat stains. Wang Matzi and Su Cheng spoke without a word and arrived at the blacksmith's shop under the limited light on the roadside. Chapter 3. Ideal is full, reality is skeletal. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The blacksmith arrived at the door and shouted, "Old lady, come out quickly. I have brought my benefactor back." 2 footsteps hurriedly rushed to the door inside the house. "Take blacksmith Su Cheng and Qin Yu in." Wang Mozi's blacksmith shop was very rudimentary, with a small storefront and scattered iron tools around, some of which were already made and some were irregular iron blocks. A few people slowly placed Qin Yu on a simple bed, covered it with a thin blanket, and the blacksmith's daughter brought a bowl of hot water to the blacksmith before hiding behind her mother. The 14-year-old girl is the daughter of a blacksmith, with curiosity and shyness in her eyes. 7 days later Qin Yu has regained her physical strength, except for a slight weakness, everything else is no different from a normal person. During this period, Qin Yu also learned that the original owner was not suffering from any illness, but was under too much pressure. He failed the imperial examinations 3 times and, coupled with his mother-in-law's sarcastic remarks, ultimately fell into a slump and died of mental illness. Now with a new soul, Qin Yu has returned to a normal state. The old blacksmith was a good man who not only saved himself but also took Su Cheng in. The blacksmith's wife liked Su Cheng's talent. Although she was not high, she could teach her daughter to read and read. In this world, women are still relatively conservative. In the first half of the year, girls waited in private schools and were not easily exposed in their boudoirs, waiting for marriage. If they wanted to continue their studies, they had to hire teachers, but the cost of hiring teachers was exceptionally high. I have taken a fancy to the sons of several bosses, so it's good for my daughter to learn more knowledge and marry to be an accountant when the time comes. I just suffered from my lack of education and married an old blacksmith who was incompetent, so now I pay attention to my daughter's culture. However, my family conditions do not allow me to invite a gentleman. Taking in Su Cheng not only teaches young girls how to read, but also allows Su Cheng to help with some household chores. Most importantly, there is no need to pay a penny. When the daughter finds a good family, she can kick Su Cheng away, ensuring a profitable business. However, what made the blacksmith's wife unhappy was that Qin Yu actually survived. According to the plot, he should have died within a few days after coming back, and then buried, which ended the old blacksmith's worry. Now it's better, the originally not wealthy family has added an extra useless mouth, and the key is that they have eaten quite a bit, so now they are not satisfied with Qin Yu everywhere. Fortunately, the old blacksmith took good care of Qin Yu. After all, he is the son of the benefactor, so he should take good care of him. The blacksmith's daughter rarely shows her face, and naturally encounters very few men. Seeing that Qin Yu is in her prime and still looks so handsome, there is a hidden affection in her heart, and she often secretly gives Qin Yu delicious food. Qin Yu's contact with the blacksmith's daughter over the past 7 days has also generated inexplicable emotions. The blacksmith's daughter is a kind and beautiful woman, and she has also developed feelings of admiration for her. However, now she does not allow herself to have any ulterior motives towards her. But in my heart, I thought that having money and power was just a matter of time. I won't marry you by then, and now that the blacksmith's daughter is waist-high, I will definitely marry her. In the early morning of that day, Qin Yu felt that her health was almost good, and she had not gained anything useful from the original owner's memory. Apart from those 4 books and 5 classics, there was almost nothing else. Qin Yu is well aware of the great advantages that modern people have after traveling through time. With the knowledge learned from TV dramas and novels, Qin Yu can use contemporary knowledge to thrive in this feudal society. As the saying goes, mastering mathematics, physics, and chemistry is not afraid to travel anywhere. Qin Yu was full of confidence, put on her clothes, washed her face thoroughly, and went shopping as soon as she said she would go out. The old blacksmith was very pleased to see Qin Yu recovering so quickly. He smiled and said, "Young Master Qin, you are still injured. How can you get out?" Qin Yu said, "My health is almost good, and now I want to go out for a walk." The blacksmith put down his hammer and said, why don't I go with you? You're weak. Qin Yu declined the blacksmith's kindness, and now the reborn Qin Yu only wants to walk quietly on her own. Qin Yu's departure this time was purposeful. In real society, she is at least 30 years old, and she still understands the world. As the saying goes, staying for a long time is despicable, and frequent intimacy is also distasteful. If you want the blacksmith's wife to give a good face, you must earn money and let the blacksmith's wife know how lucky they are to save themselves. The blacksmith shop is located at the very end of the bustling streets in Dongqing district. This industry is not as popular as industries such as rouge, water powder, medicinal herbs, and restaurants, so it can only be done in places where there are few people, so it does not disturb the people. Qin Yu walked towards the bustling street market, with shops lining the streets and street vendors selling various snacks and toys. Qin Yu looked happily at the bustling vendors on both sides, thinking of the night markets in his past life, which were all selling food toys, but now they are far less lively than in his past life. Qin Yu walked slowly on the street and thought to himself, what can I do to earn money? Barbecue skewers. Sell century egg. Make glass. Sell hot pot. I don't know when the world will be flooded with crawfish. However, after a moment, these ideas were all abandoned by Qin Yu one by one, which required capital. Now that the blacksmith shop didn't have much money, he was already satisfied with managing his own food and accommodation. If he asked for money again and said he wanted to do business, ghosts would believe it. Is there any business that can still earn money through free prostitution? This should not only be Qin Yu's idea, but also everyone's idea. The bustling streets were not far apart, and soon Qin Yu walked to the other end of the commercial street. Qin Yu still hasn't figured out how to make money on this journey. After all, her body is still very weak now, and she has no money left. Sigh, it's really hard to defeat a hero with just 1 penny. Qin Yu turned his head and walked towards the blacksmith's shop again. When he arrived at the door, he saw the blacksmith's wife leaning against the pillar in front of the door to shade the sun, chewing on melon seeds and looking at Qin Yu askance, as if saying, "Why are you still alive?" The blacksmith's wife is 40 years old, dressed in a red skirt. Although it is a bit old, it is washed quite clean, and there is no patch on the clothes. She wears a silver hairpin on her rolled-up hair, indicating that she wants to pursue a life of wealth. However, her family is also very poor. The blacksmith's hammer was still tinkling on the iron tools. Qin Yu greeted the two and walked into the backyard. Qin Yu dared not look at the blacksmith's wife, and his powerful gaze was comparable to that of his mother-in-law. In the backyard, Su Qing also changed into the old clothes worn by the blacksmith and earnestly taught his daughter how to read and read. The blacksmith's daughter's name is Wang Xiaoyu. She is 15 years old this year, with bright eyes and white teeth, standing tall and graceful. She has only undergone 18 changes, and Xiaoyu is charming. If she completes the 18 changes, she will definitely be a beautiful woman. At the age of 15, according to the social setting, girls can get married. However, in the current situation of the blacksmith's wife's snobbery, she hopes that her daughter will marry those wealthy people, and it is best to manage her own affairs so that she can occasionally help herself. With Su Cheng's teaching, one can publicly say where their daughter learned from, which increases the chance of joining a wealthy family. After seeing Qin Yu return, Xiaoyu shyly lowered her head and continued reading the knowledge she had just learned. A simple glance at Xiaoyu, Qin Yu's heart was filled with passion. She didn't know where to start, and she fell deeply in love. At this moment, Qin Yu thought about what to call her Xiaoyu's child. "I'm back." Su Cheng's words brought Qin Yu back to reality. What kind of dream did she have? She was penniless and still a second marriage. How could she be worthy of her? Qin Yu saw Su Cheng's uncontrollable body attached and bowed, "My father-in-law." In fact, Qin Yu didn't want to be so respectful to Su Cheng. After all, this old boy almost took him away, but such a long time of addressing his body has already formed the Pavlovian effect. Chapter 4. Blacksmith's Shop Smashing. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Su Cheng sighed and said, Dear son.in.law, it's not right. From Guangchuan onwards, don't call me my father.in.law anymore. I can't bear it. How will I address you in the future? It's okay to call me uncle, or elder brother. If you are in a bad mood, you can call me a teacher or an old blacksmith. Qin Yu arched his hand and said, Big brother, I have some courtesy in this room. I wipe, do you really scream? Su Cheng ran over with an alpaca in his heart. But on second thought, a title is not important. I have transformed from a wealthy businessman to a poor farmer, and how could I have the face to care about a title? Qin Yu thought that Su Cheng was not yet 40 years old, and at least he was also over 30. It was not inappropriate to call him Big Brother, and I was no longer the same Qin Yu as before. Qin Yu and Xiao Yu exchanged a glance, smiled slightly, and Xiao Yu's face blushed even more. Su Cheng said, Brother, don't be idle either. Go to the door and help Brother Motzi forge iron. We can't just be useless people like before. Qin Yu thought about it the same way. There is no good way to earn money now, so he just helps the blacksmith a little. The blacksmith's wife who saves money has been thinking about herself, and the feeling of being under someone else's supervision is not good. Qin Yu took off her Confucian robe, rolled up her sleeves, and walked out of the iron shop in front of the door. The blacksmith saw Qin Yu come out and quickly put down the hammer in his hand, saying, Qin Gongzi, why did you come out? You're still wearing so little, be careful not to catch a cold. Qin Yu said, I'm almost doing well now. Let's help you forge iron together, so you can also exercise. The blacksmith's wife on the side looked at Qin Yu in surprise. She didn't expect Qin Yu to know she came out to help, but soon she looked at Qin Yu with a dead face. What could a little white face do? Qin Yu repeatedly pushed away the blacksmith's kindness and stayed behind to help. As soon as he turned the hammer a few times, he felt powerless and cursed the body for being too weak. The blacksmith smiled foolishly and said, Qin Gongzi, let me do it. This is rough work, and that's what you, a scholar, can do. Qin Yu also smiled awkwardly and retreated to the second line. The blacksmith's wife sneered, if you can't do it, don't show off. Be careful not to get tired again. At least your family's money will buy you medicine. The blacksmith dared not provoke the wife and said foolishly, don't mind what the woman says. Qin Yu doesn't care how hard the blacksmith's wife says, what matters is that she came here, making the life of the originally not wealthy blacksmith even worse, all because of herself. The blacksmith's wife gracefully turned her head and left the blacksmith's shop to visit her favorite rouge and powder shop. The blacksmith said while forging, don't listen to her. Today, I took on a good job of crafting a short blade. As long as it's done well, I can get 5 silver coins. After deducting taxes, it will be enough for our family to eat for a month, and I have already paid a deposit of 1 silver coin. The money in this world is copper plates, silver coins, gold coins, and silver notes. 1 silver coin can be exchanged for 100 copper plates, and 1 gold coin can be exchanged for 100 silver coins. Of course, blacksmiths have only seen gold coins in their lifetime and have never touched them. Qin Yu studied metallurgy in his previous life, and his theoretical and practical achievements were all A+, deeply understanding how steel is refined. Qin Yu became interested and said, what kind of short blade? The old blacksmith was also a little tired. He put down his work, took out a piece of paper from the iron box beside him, and said, this is it. Qin Yu took the blueprint and looked at the short blade in confusion. The front tip was pointed upwards, the middle was wide, and the tail was narrow. The length was about 20 centimeters, the width was about 5 centimeters, and the thickness was about 0.5 centimeters. It was also the first time he had seen such a strange short blade. However, Forging this short blade can earn 5 silver coins, which is a considerable income for blacksmiths. Qin Yu continued, what are the requirements for making this short blade? The blacksmith wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, I can withstand 800 pounds and blow my hair to break it. Qin Yu thought to herself that 1 pound here should be equivalent to the current 600 grams, and 500 pounds should be equivalent to 480 kilograms. This requires extremely high lateral tensile strength for short blades, as well as blowing hair to break hair, which also requires extremely high steel grades. Qin Yu looked at the quality of the sickles, hoes, and kitchen knives hanging on the blacksmith's shop, which were of average quality. How could the blacksmith come up with such a difficult job? Qin Yu continued, Uncle, do you know that this short blade is not easy to forge? The blacksmith said, it's okay, good iron is tempered 1,000 times. If you try a few more times, you will succeed. The one I'm making now can withstand a force of 600 pounds. Qin Yu looked at the irregular iron utensils next to the stove and thought to herself, being able to withstand lateral tension does not necessarily mean that the longitudinal tension is qualified, and it also requires blowing and breaking hair, which requires higher requirements for steel blades. Qin Yu looked at all the high carbon iron around her and didn't believe that such a high-quality steel grade could be produced in this society. When will the customer come to pick up the goods? Come early tomorrow morning. What if the customer's requirements are not met? It's okay, it will definitely be achieved. I've been working for a generation now, and I still have some confidence in it. Qin Yu wanted to help, but without good materials, she couldn't do it herself. After sighing, he helped the blacksmith swing a hammer, and his clean clothes were also burned with many holes by the splashing iron flowers. As it was getting late, the blacksmith's wife saw that Qin Yu had almost recovered. During the meal, she had a vague desire to drive Qin Yu away, after all, Qin Yu was a bit of a waste. Qin Yu just sighed in his heart. He didn't know the gold inlaid with jade. Sooner or later, I will make you regret it. When I start to hang up, I will give the old blacksmith a lot of money. Then he will give you a rest and let the blacksmith marry 10 or 8 wives, which will kill you. But on second thought, if the blacksmith's wife can help the blacksmith save her and also spend money, it indicates that she still has some kindness in her heart. That night, the blacksmith worked all night, and Qin Yu couldn't hold on. He went to bed in the latter half of the night. Qin Yu was too tired this day and slept like a dead pig. The next day, the light was bright. Qin Yu had not yet woken up when the sound of a fight at the door, or more precisely, the sound of a blacksmith's shop being smashed. Qin Yusin couldn't figure it out. Someone came to smash the scene. She put on her clothes, got out of bed, and ran to the door. A man dressed as an official kept smashing the shop. The old blacksmith and Su Qing begged. Xiaoyu's mother and daughter were afraid to hide at the door. Qin Yu had at least received a lot of beating in her previous life, and she has rich experience in this area. In this situation, she either owed money or did not complete her work. Qin Yu shouted loudly, "Stop!" The official stopped and smashed things when he heard someone shouting. He looked at Qin Yu in confusion and said, "Who are you, kid?" Qin Yu turned around and said, "Why did you smash my store?" The official said, "Why?" The official didn't explain and kicked the bent short blade directly at Qin Yu's feet. Qin Yu picked it up and looked, but the hardness was still not enough. "I asked for 800 pounds, and the blacksmith promised that there was no problem. Now I can't even bear 500 pounds. Shouldn't a store that exaggerates be smashed?" Chapter 5. Professional Metallurgists. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The surrounding crowd has prepared watermelons to watch the excitement. Qin Yu said calmly, "If we don't meet your requirements, we will refund the deposit to you so as not to damage the store." The official sneered, "The refund is simple, but you have delayed me for 3 days. Do you know how important this short blade is to me?" Qin Yu continued, your requirements are too demanding and it's really not easy to complete. If it can't be completed, it's okay to just compensate me with 5 silver coins. The woman behind the door rushed out as soon as she heard that she was going to accompany 5 silver coins. She didn't ask the official for an explanation, but her index finger pointed at the blacksmith's forehead and scolded, it's all your fault. There's no diamond to do any porcelain work. It's good now. We don't have any money at home. It depends on how you accompany us. Good acting skills, so that the official can see that the blacksmith family really doesn't have much money. If he scolds the blacksmith again, the official may soften his heart and this matter will pass, Qin Yu thought to himself. Of course, I am also thinking about how powerful a small official could be, with just 5 silver coins in his mouth. This shows how much the people in this world are afraid of official positions. But this official seems to be a seasoned expert. If you don't have money, you can do it. Just sell a house and you'll have it, won't you? When it comes to selling a house, everyone is dumbfounded. It's too bullying to sell the house just because of a short blade. Some of the onlookers recognize this outfit. The technician from the Army Building Department of the Inspection Department, although not a true official, was not an ordinary person who could work for the Inspection Department. The Inspection Department was a higher existence than the Yamen. The woman chattered incessantly, accusing the blacksmith of taking on Qin Yu and saying, if it weren't for you, would the blacksmith dare to take on such a job? Qin Yu suddenly felt sorry for the family. Apart from the blacksmith's wife, it was probably because she had spent a lot of money that the blacksmith took on this impossible task. She thought she could deceive her, but unexpectedly, an expert came along. Qin Yu continued, Sir, is there any other way? We are all ordinary people and cannot afford to spend so much money at once. Can we pay in installments? What does installment payment mean? Don't talk nonsense. If you can't create it, you'll have to lose money. Even if you file a lawsuit, you won't win. Create it. Qin Yu's spirit flashed. Official, can we create it so that we don't need to spend money with you? If you can really create it, let alone lose money. I will still give you the 5 silver coins I promised before. Okay, then we'll remake it for you. The blacksmith beside him whispered, Qin Gongzi cannot speak big, this request is too difficult. The blacksmith's wife sneered, if it could be made, it would have been made long ago. However, the official looked at Qin Yu, who was neither humble nor arrogant, and didn't know where this kid came from with confidence. He inexplicably looked forward to it and said, what if we can't create it? Qin Yu said, I'll handle it as you please, but I can't make things difficult for the blacksmith family anymore. I believe in you, you are the best. The blacksmith's wife stood up first and patted Qin Yu's shoulder, saying, after all, if we can make money by crafting it, we will only trouble Qin Yu if we can't make it. She won't do our business. Okay, you do have the loyalty of a local ruffian and the demeanor of my youth. I believe in you once, but you only have one day. The official believed in Qin Yu, who was full of confidence in front of him, by some strange means. No problem. After the official left, Xiao Yu ran up to Qin Yu and said with a tearful expression, Qin Yu, what if you can't create it? Qin Yu wiped away Xiao Yu's tears and said, don't worry, I will definitely create it. The old blacksmith looked guilty and said, young Master Qin, it's my greed that killed you. Qin Yu smiled and said, if it weren't for my spending too much in the past few days, the current situation wouldn't have happened. Don't worry, I have confidence in forging it. As Qin Yu walked towards the yard, the old blacksmith followed, and Su Cheng was at the door, picking up the broken tools. Blacksmiths are blacksmiths, so there are naturally many iron ores in their homes. Qin Yu searched for iron ore and wanted to find a piece of manganese iron ore. According to the official's requirements, only manganese iron ore met the requirements the most. Adding an appropriate amount of manganese element to stainless steel can greatly improve the hardness and toughness of the steel. Some tank armor in modern society uses manganese steel. Yesterday, I looked at the confident blacksmith and thought that the short blade he made could handle customers, but I didn't expect to be careless. The blacksmith didn't know what Qin Yu was doing. "Qin Gongzi, what are you looking for?" Qin Yu said, "Iron ore, a high-quality iron ore." The blacksmith scratched his head and said, "Young Master Qin, do you still understand iron ore?" Qin Yu ignored the blacksmith and didn't have much time left for herself. "This is magnetite ore, which contains a large amount of ferric oxide and has magnetism. It is suitable for making hardware tools, but it doesn't work. This is hematite ore, which is mainly composed of iron oxide with less impurities. Although the iron yield is high, its toughness is not enough, so it is not suitable. This is a brown iron ore, mainly composed of iron and water. It has a lot of impurities and is difficult to smelt." The blacksmith listened to Qin Yu murmuring to himself as if listening to a heavenly book. Although I couldn't understand, I felt that Qin Yu was speaking very professionally, as if he was an experienced alchemist. Qin Yu searched for a long time and didn't find a piece that she liked. She looked down and scratched her head frantically, feeling that she might as well just die. The old blacksmith looked at Qin Yu, who had no idea what to do. Suddenly he remembered something and said, "I have a piece of unknown ore in my house. Would you like to have a look?" Qin Yu suddenly came to his senses and said, "Where is it?" Qin Yu knew that the blacksmith's family had iron ore, and there was nothing else they didn't know. The more valuable the ore was, the more valuable it was. The blacksmith led Qin Yu to the kitchen and pointed to the black stone next to the stove, saying, "This is this one. I don't know what kind of stone it is, but it's always cool all year round. So I put it next to the stove as a bench." Qin Yu stepped forward and touched it, using all her strength to do it. It was really heavy, and Qin Yu shouted as if discovering a treasure. Meteorite iron ore has an iron content of up to 90%. Although it does not contain manganese, it contains nickel, which is similar to the content of Uzi steel. The short blades crafted from it have excellent hardness and toughness, and are not easily rusted. I didn't expect you to have this treasure at home. Qin Yu laughed happily as she hugged the black lump. The blacksmith and Xiao Yu looked at Qin Yu like fools, but of course, only professional metallurgists understood the value of this black lump. The blacksmith said, "I found this ore in a big pit in the Starry Sea forest, and when I picked up this stone, it felt exceptionally heavy, so I brought it back." Qin Yu popularized his knowledge and said, "This is a meteorite that fell from the sky. It is extremely rare in the world. I have only seen it in the Mineral Museum, but that piece is much smaller than yours." The blacksmith was confused. What is a mineral museum? Qin Yu naturally did not explain, and the explanation was also useless. Chapter 6. Add chicken legs to this boy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Next, Qin Yu explained in detail to the blacksmith the smelting method of this meteorite iron. First, crush the meteorite iron and place it in a crucible. Burn it to a temperature of about 1500 degrees Celsius. Do not burn it until it turns red, then forge it. Remove impurities and soak it in oil. Use kerosene before forging. Blow oxygen midway and do not blow air. The blacksmith was a bit puzzled and said, "Is forging iron so complicated?" Qin Yu said, "Do as I say, don't ask why, I have less strength and am responsible for supervision." Although the blacksmith did not understand why smelting iron ore required such complex steps, he saw confidence in Qin Yu himself. "Don't say anything, roll up your sleeves and work hard." Next, the elderly and the young worked together to break the meteorite into pieces and heat it in a crucible over high heat. Qin Yu couldn't take his eyes off the changes in the ore. Slowly waiting for the ore to melt, Qin Yu picked up impurities and said, "Add fire." The old blacksmith pulled the bellows harder. The sky was getting late, and the blacksmith's wife served dinner appropriately. Although she was certain that Qin Yu could not create a short blade that met the requirements, it was still possible for Qin Yu to have a good meal before she died. Don't come back to trouble yourself after you die. The blacksmith shop had another clanging night. The sunrise in the east quietly poked out his head, and Qin Yu wiped the sweat stains on his forehead. Finally, it's done, he said. The old blacksmith looked at the short blade, which revealed the chill, and sighed in his heart. I didn't expect that I could make such a high-quality short blade, which is the most perfect weapon I have ever seen. The two of them tried the performance of this short blade and it was very perfect, far exceeding the requirements of the official. At this moment, the two of them were reluctant to hand over this short blade to the official. After all, such an excellent short blade may be the only one in the entire Holy Kingdom, and selling more than 10 gold coins to nobles and nobles would not be a problem. But the most important thing now is to hand over the task, not let the officials cause trouble for him, and earn those 5 silver coins by the way. Qin Yu sighed, if it weren't for poverty, why should I sell such a perfect short blade at a low price? Time passed little by little, and the two of them stayed up all night, exhausted both physically and mentally, but still waiting for the official to come and pick up the goods. I saw a distant official approaching and looking at Qin Yu with his nostrils. Little boy, how is the short blade being crafted? Qin Yu handed the hands of the short blade to the official, who had not yet taken over. Looking at the cold light overflowing the short blade, he felt a little timid in his heart. The sharp steel blade makes one's heart tremble at a glance, and the blade has been crafted with a dark black pattern, which is extremely beautiful. After the official cautiously accepted it, there was even a hint of coldness. He took out his hammer and struck the blade heavily, causing his palms to tingle with the strong rebound force. The sharpness did not need to be tested, but the penetrating cold light proved that this short blade was incredibly sharp. The official held the hilt of the knife, and his eyes never left the short blade. He didn't know how these two masters made it, but what was certain was that the entire Holy Kingdom could never find a more perfect weapon than this short blade. Qin Yu knew that her task had been completed, and it was exceptionally perfect. She loudly said, "Official, official. This time it will meet your requirements." The official came to his senses and said, "Perfect, so perfect. How did you do it, kid?" Qin Yu did not mention the method of crafting. "Since we have completed the short blade, did you give us the remaining money instead?" The old blacksmith said in a low voice. "If the officer is satisfied, the money is not important." The old blacksmith is afraid of being an official. The official was also very happy. He took out 4 silver coins and threw them in front of the old blacksmith. "You deserve it." Then he took out 5 silver coins and threw them at the old blacksmith. "Well done," he said. "You can add chicken legs to the boy for dinner. By the way, your name is Qin Yu." Qin Yu nodded. "Well, I remember you now." After speaking, he burst out laughing and wanted to leave. The old blacksmith has never earned so much money in a day. He takes out 5 silver coins and plans to return them to the officials. He can't collect more money from others. The blacksmith's wife snatched the money and said, "We must accept the reward from the official, otherwise we won't give him face." After finishing speaking, he happily put on the silver coins and entered the house. After the official left, the two of them breathed a deep sigh of relief and finally everything was fine. Xiao Yu looked at Qin Yu happily, not knowing how she made it, but now she was her idol in her heart. After the two of them went to the hospital to wash their clothes, they didn't eat anything and went straight to bed. The blacksmith's wife, on the other hand, happily held these 10 silver coins and even had a runny nose. She took out 50 copper coins and handed them to Su Cheng, saying, "Buy meat, buy wine, and buy more chicken legs." Su Cheng hadn't seen any meat or fish for 8 days, so he took the money and ran out. Xiao Yu, on the other hand, secretly lay by Qin Yu's bed and looked at her sleeping body. With such a handsome face, she really wanted to take a kiss. After all, Qin Yu's physical fitness was too poor. She had been busy all night and slept until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is the current social time. If it weren't for my stomach being upset and growling incessantly, it would probably have been dark for this awakening. After Qin Yu woke up, he tidied up his clothes and pushed open the door. In the courtyard, Xiao Yu was still reciting the 4 books and 5 classics. Su Qing smiled and looked at Qin Yu, wondering if there were any oil stains on his mouth that had not been wiped clean. It wasn't that he didn't like it to be clean, he just wanted to keep the meat on his mouth. Qin Yu couldn't wait to smell the aroma of chicken legs in the kitchen and ran towards the kitchen. He picked up the chicken legs and opened his mouth wide. Before he could bite them, he heard another shout at the door. "Blacksmith! Officer, isn't this a short blade for you? Why did it come again?" Qin Yu walked to the door with chicken legs and saw the official who came this morning with a blue nose and swollen face. Behind him stood 2 people wearing dark exotic animal costumes, with straight swords on their waist, expressionless and full of murderous intent. At first glance, it is clear that this is an official family member, with a much higher level than this official rank, and the injuries on the official rank are likely caused by these 2 individuals. Some people around recognized these 2 officials and said, "This is from the inspector's office." After speaking, the people around scattered as if seeing a ghost, and the shops around closed their doors. For a moment, the once bustling street market became silent. Qin Yu doesn't know who these 2 people are, but it can be certain that they are not good people, otherwise the common people wouldn't dare to be so afraid. The official covered the swollen old man's mouth and trembled, saying, "That's it here." The person behind the official said coldly, "Who is Qin Yu?" The blacksmith was very afraid of these 2 adults, but also worried that Qin Yu would provoke someone who shouldn't have been provoked. He timidly said, "Your Excellency, Qin Yu has not recovered from his illness yet. He is resting inside the house. Let me know if you have anything to do." The 2 adults looked murderous, and one of them pulled out a knife and said, "Hand over Qin Yu." The blacksmith's wife next to her was so scared that her legs softened and she shouted, "Sir, don't do anything. I'll go call right away." Chapter 7. I like people without culture. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Yu, who had not yet eaten a bite of chicken legs behind the door, didn't know what had happened. In her own memory, she didn't step out of the door and didn't blame anyone, let alone officials. However, it's certainly not a good thing to see officials draw swords, but it seems that it's not a big thing for officials to kill a civilian in this society. After all, they were saved by an old blacksmith, so they can't be involved. So he stood up without any fear and said, "I'm Qin Yu. What's up with you?" One of them smiled slightly and pushed the other's knife back into the scabbard, saying, "I have something to confirm with you." Qin Yu saw that the official with a blue nose and swollen face was probably a matter of the short blade, and her heart was also beating drums. Could it be that her short blade had quality problems again? It shouldn't be anymore. Once we sell the goods, we won't be responsible. It has always been the rule of thumb for us to do business. Did the official use his short blade to kill someone? That's not my own business, I'm just a blacksmith. But you must show exceptional calmness, otherwise the more panicked you become, the more likely you are to make mistakes. What's going on? You made this short blade. Then he took out the exact sketch of the short blade that the official gave to the blacksmith. At this moment, the blacksmith was still planning to come forward and speak, but was stopped by Qin Yu. If there was anything I wanted to do, I would fight it myself. After all, I shouldn't have appeared in this world and said, "What happened to me?" That's easy, come with us. Let's go. Where are we going? Stop talking nonsense, are you going on your own or are you bound up to come with us? Qin Yu knew she was definitely not a match for these 2 officials. Can you make me eat enough? Cannot. He picked up Qin Yu and left, but unfortunately Qin Yu didn't take a bite of the chicken leg in his hand and accidentally fell to the ground. Qin Yu, who was being dragged, kept reaching out to the chicken leg, but unfortunately, the chicken leg was getting further and further away from her. Xiaoyu didn't know what had happened, but when she saw Qin Yu being taken away by an official, she was so scared that she started crying again. The blacksmith's wife breathed a sigh of relief, but fortunately, she didn't implicate her man. On the way, Qin Yu kept asking what he was looking for, and the beaten official dared not breathe. The cheerful official said, "You're lucky. Our boss really likes the short blade you made. It feels like you're just a person who wants to see you. Emotion is this matter, so there's no need to be so mysterious. It makes me feel like a murderer." Quickly, Qin Yu was taken to a tower, which was 5 stories high. The painted black gate was solemn and dignified, occupying the ground comparable to the contemporary Temple of Heaven. Qin Yu seemed to have an impression of what this place was. According to the original owner's memory, this is a mysterious place where the people who can enter and exit are either officials or nobles, but they just don't know what they do. Qin Yu followed the 2 adults into the lobby on the first floor, surrounded by neatly organized books that looked like files. There were also many people dressed like the 2 officials hurriedly organizing the books in the lobby. "Sir, Qin Yu has arrived." One of the officials arched his hand and sat on the ground in the middle of the hall, dressed simply as a middle-aged man. The official slowly put down his book and looked at Qin Yu with an incredulous expression, saying, "You are Qin Yu." Qin Yu knew that this kid must be the leader, so he quickly arched his hand and said, "Exactly." This adult looked at Qin Yu like a monster, seemingly different from what he had imagined. How could he be a young man, and he looked like a weak chicken? The official with a blue nose and swollen face who came with him had already knelt down on both knees, and one hand kept pulling Qin Yu to signal to kneel along. The official next to him looked at Qin Yu in surprise and said, "I see that Lordly hasn't knelt down yet." Qin Yu is at least a young person with modern thinking, who can kneel to the sky and the ground to kneel to his parents. There is no such etiquette as kneeling to strangers. One of the officials happily bowed to the adult in front of him and said, "Qin Yu is a scholar, a scholar." Mr. Li said, "Oh, you're a scholar again." His words were filled with contempt. Qin Yu quickly replied, "I won't read any more in the future, it's useless to read. Okay, with ambition, I like young people without culture." Mr. Li was quite happy when he heard Qin Yu say that he didn't study. Mr. Li looked at the official who was still kneeling and said, "You can go now." The official with a blue nose and swollen face, as if facing amnesty, knocked his head heavily and muttered thank you to Mr. Li before quickly disappearing in front of everyone. Mr. Li continued, "Is this short blade what you made?" Qin Yu didn't know the other person's identity, but when she saw the official who bought her short blade being as timid as a mouse seeing a cat, she knew that the other person's identity was extraordinary. "But at least I am someone who has seen the world on TV. Anyway, I haven't made any mistakes, so why be afraid?" Qin Yu calmly said, "The younger generation provides the method of crafting, and Uncle Motzi is responsible for making it. This short blade is the most perfect weapon I have ever seen in my life. Can you tell me how to make it?" Emotion is about wanting to learn one's own skills, which scared me to death. "You thought you were stealing my chicken legs," Qin Yu thought to herself. Qin Yu continued, "The smelting method is very exquisite, complex and difficult to operate, and the most important thing is the trace elements contained in this short blade, which can be said to be unparalleled in the world." Trace elements. A is an extremely unique mineral. During the questioning, Mr. Li kept playing with this short blade. Mr. Li continued, "Can you mass produce it?" "To be honest, I am training a special force. If I have divine weapons, it will increase my combat power and enhance my ability to execute missions." Qin Yu was in a difficult situation and didn't know what to say for a moment. Mr. Li looked at Qin Yu and said, "The price is easy to say. As long as you quote, I won't argue." Qin Yu hesitated and said, "To be honest, this short blade is probably the only one in the Holy Kingdom, because the material of the ore is exceptionally special. It is made of meteorite iron from the sky. If it weren't for the official's coercion, I wouldn't have sold it to him." Mr. Li didn't seem angry when he heard only one, but after a while he smiled happily and said, "It's a bit regrettable that it's worth it, but it's really rare for the blade to blow hair and break hair, and the cold light to overflow." Qin Yu said at this moment, "Could Lord Li hand over the short blade to me? I will show you its terrifying power." Mr. Li became interested and said, "Oh. Is there any other terrifying place?" As he spoke, he handed the short blade to Qin Yu's hand, and the official next to him reminded him, "Sir, it's not allowed." He seemed afraid that Qin Yu might make any dangerous moves. Mr. Li waved his hand and said, "A scholar has nothing to worry about. It's so awkward, it seems like she's saying she's a waste without any threat," Qin Yu thought to herself. Qin Yu took the short blade and said, "Mr. Li, can you let this official come and demonstrate? I've been hungry all day and I really don't have the strength." Lord Li gave a glance to the servant, who took the short blade and didn't know what tricks Qin Yu was going to play. Qin Yu drew a sword from the official's waist, and the official was nervous. "What do you want to do? Do you know where this is?" Qin Yu quickly said, "Don't be nervous. I am a scholar and won't do those irrational things. Please use the short blade in your hand to strike your sword." Chapter 8. Damascus. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 9. Unfitting clothes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Yu returned to the blacksmith's shop with a heavy bag of gold coins. The blacksmith enthusiastically inquired about Qin Yu's situation as usual, and the blacksmith's wife also looked down on Qin Yu as usual. Xiao Yu watched Qin Yu return in perfect condition, feeling very happy inside. When Qin Yu took out 20 gold coins and placed them in front of everyone, blacksmith, Su Cheng, and Xiao Yu were dumbfounded. However, the blacksmith's wife snatched the money as if she had seen her own father and said, "I said Qin Yu must be in high spirits." Qin Yu Bai glanced and said, "When did you say that?" "It's not important, Xiao Yu, don't be fooled. Hurry up and bring the chicken legs to your brother Yu. Look at how you've been starving him these past few days. Indeed, having money is like being a father." Qin Yu explained the causes and consequences of the situation, and the blacksmith family was extremely moved. They no longer had to pay taxes, which would bring about a revolutionary change in their quality of life. A moderately prosperous life was beckoning to them. As the sky grew late, for the sake of money, the blacksmith's wife was unusually enthusiastic, buying both wine and meat, and most importantly, buying herself new clothes, jewelry, and rouge. She dressed up beautifully and stood on the street, waving to attract business owners. "Yo, when did Wang Mozi's wife add a second profession? Get out of here." Although Qin Yu couldn't stand the blacksmith's wife, she also understood that a woman's pursuit of a happy life is thousands of times better than those socialites who pretend to be wealthy without money in real life. The blacksmith family has closed their shop early this day, placing a rich variety of delicious food and wine on the table, imagining a beautiful tomorrow. The blacksmith's wife, on the other hand, has no leisure time and flaunts her newly purchased clothes and jewelry everywhere. Coincidentally not at home, Qin Yu drank a few cups and pulled Xiao Yu, who was just starting to fall in love, aside. He took out 10 gold coins and put them in Xiao Yu's hand, saying, "Xiao Yu, you are also at the age of marriage. You must have some dowry, otherwise you will also feel upset when you come to your mother-in-law's house. This is what I left for you. Please keep it for yourself and don't let your mother know or tell your father." Xiao Yu had never seen so much money before, so she quickly pushed it off and said, "Brother Yu, this is the money that the inspection department has given to you and has already given our family 20 coins. I can't accept your money anymore." "Silly sister, those 20 are what Uncle Blacksmith deserves because he saved my life. These 10 are what you deserve for yourself, because you secretly gave me a lot of delicious food during my illness." Xiao Yu still didn't want it. The two argued for a while, but in the end, Xiaoyu collected the gold coins and hid them tightly according to Qin Yu's requirements. Xiaoyu thought to herself, it would be great if I could marry Qin Yu, who is not only kind but also so handsome. Unfortunately, he doesn't like me. I am still too poor, without a house or a horse. Otherwise, I would be reluctant to let Xiaoyu's sister marry someone else. I need to work harder and strive to become a wealthy man when someone else comes to mediate for Xiaoyu. Qin Yu thought to herself. Later, Qin Yu also secretly gave his unpopular father-in-law 10 gold coins. It was not easy to live under someone else's supervision, and he could save this money for a few years. Let's figure out a way for the future on his own. I left myself 10 gold coins alone. After all, I still need money for future social events. These 3 days, the blacksmith family has been enjoying themselves more than celebrating the Chinese New Year, spending time amidst a sea of laughter and joy. 3 days later the 2 officials from the inspection office arrived at the door of the blacksmith shop early, and Qin Yu had already tidied up. In fact, there was nothing to tidy up, just wash your face clean. The 3 of them got on the carriage and headed towards the inspection hall. The Department of Investigation and Inspection is divided into 4 military departments. An old man wearing a dark beast official uniform looked at a pile of damaged weapons with a worried expression on his face. These weapons included broken swords, broken shields, and sunken helmets. Among others, the old man is Ren Xiaoqiao, the director of the military building department of the inspection department, murmuring, where exactly is the problem with the craftsmanship? Why are the weapons we create inferior to those of Wu Guo in terms of toughness and strength? No subordinate present dared to speak up, and no one knew where the problem lay. Director Ren is still pondering. Which link went wrong in smelting, forging, and cooling? By the way, today the director said there will be a very skilled metallurgist coming over, and I also know if this metallurgist has earned a reputation. After speaking, Zhou Heng, the deputy director next to him, glanced sideways. Zhou Heng was older than Director Ren and was valued by the department head for his direct appointment. Unfortunately, his skills were good, but at that time he threatened to use weapons that were hundreds of times stronger than those of Wu Guo. However, the weapons he crafted were still far inferior to those of Wu Guo. This has led to ridicule from the entire military establishment. If one still cannot create good weapons, it will be a small matter to roll up their bedding and go home, and it is very likely that they will be sent to serve as soldiers. Cherish and hope that the metallurgist who came this time can have real skills, so that they can create good weapons. No one will value themselves anymore, and they will not be punished. The 3 of them quickly arrived at the inspection hall by car, and Guo Chunliang briefly completed the onboarding procedures for Qin Yu and signed a confidentiality agreement similar to what is currently in place. Then the work clothes were issued, which were still the solemn and dark color unified by the inspection hall. However, the emblem on my chest was a small hammer, while the other 2 had 2 crossed straight knives. Then, I brought Qin Yu to see the leader. Qin Yu's body is thin and small, and the work clothes she wears are really not fitting, even her shoes need to be 2 sizes larger. Qin Yu kept clamoring to change his work clothes, while Guo Chunliang smiled and said, everything that comes to the inspection hall relies on real skills. Only when everyone recognizes your technical skills can you wear the most fitting clothes and shoes. Emotions are also difficult for this country's unit to handle newcomers. Sigh, damn it. After seeing Qin Yu, Mr. Li said, the newcomers were supposed to first understand all the functions of the 10 departments of the inspection department, but now there are some things that need to be handled in the 3 departments. You can go and see if you can solve them yourself. Additionally, you 2 have new tasks. Before Qin Yu could speak, she was assigned work and even sent to the military building department. Qin Yu had no choice but to inquire all the way and arrived at the military building. The military building was different from other departments, as it was a production department and could not be located in the office building. However, it was not far from the inspection hall, and it was only a 20-minute walk to reach the military building. The 5-meter-high stone gate of the military building is adorned with 2 belligerent statues of Yazzie squatting at the entrance. Qin Yu arched his hand and asked the guard, "Lordly asked me to come and report." He then handed over the official documents from the inspection department to the guard. The guard glanced briefly and said, "Go straight to the arsenal, it's under the largest chimney, and the director is there." Qin Yu ran all the way to the arsenal, carrying ill-fitting pants. The guard smiled and said, "This kid is even funnier than when you came. Look, those shoes are almost falling off. You're not much stronger than him either." Qin Yu came to the arsenal with a document and saw a group of people surrounding a pile of damaged weapons. He didn't know who to find and shouted, "Sir, I'm here to report." Chapter 10. Betting Contract. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A group of people followed the sound and looked at Qin Yu. From their clothes, they knew they were a newcomer. Director Ren walked out to look at the official documents in the inspection room and curiously looked at Qin Yu, his eyes full of contempt. "Are you Qin Yu? It's the younger generation. Did you build Damascus?" Qin Yu did not expect that the weapon building department would know the short blade he had crafted. "My method, the blacksmith's strength. I really can't see that at your young age, your skills are so advanced. Even Lordly admires you greatly." Where? Our military department does not accept idle people. If you want to stay here, you need to rely on your true abilities. Qin Yu thought that she had studied metallurgy for at least 3 years, with excellent ethics and practice, and was definitely a top presence in your world. "I know. Okay, now take a look at your weapon and see if you can detect any issues." Damn it, as soon as I arrived, I was tested. As for what? Qin Yu felt displeased in her heart. According to the regulations of modern society, it should first introduce oneself, then invite elders to criticize and help more, and then eat and drink to celebrate the arrival of the new person. How can we start working right away now? Although Qin Yu was unhappy in his heart, there was nothing he could do. Looking at the damaged weapons on the ground, Qin Yu picked up a straight sword, tapped it with his hand, looked at the cross-dot section, and struck it several times with a heavy object. The subordinate looked at the new employee's pretense and felt very unhappy. If other new employees were to say that they had subtly evaded and repeatedly checked, they wouldn't dare to make hasty remarks. It seems that there is another Zhouheng. Qin Yu looked carefully and said, "There are problems with the smelting, forging, and crafting of secondary weapons." With such a crazy tone, he offended all the metallurgists present with just one sentence, directly stating that his skills were not good. Director Ren was curious and said, "What's the problem?" Qin Yu said, "The problem is that firstly, the impurities are not completely removed, and secondly, the cooling during forging is too extreme, which makes the straight blade have high hardness but low toughness. If there is a fierce collision, it is easy to break." Director Ren seems to feel that what Qin Yu said is reasonable, but weapons have always been made in this way. How can impurities exist in the red molten iron? Qin Yu continued, "These are not the most important things, the final one is the composition of the ore. Good weapons need to use good steel. This weapon is obviously not made of stainless steel. If it cannot even meet the standard of stainless steel, even the best weapon will be damaged." Everyone in the armory factory listened to Qin Yu's eloquence as if listening to a heavenly book. Although they didn't think their methods were wrong, they inexplicably felt that Qin Yu's words were exceptionally professional. Does this kid really have 2 tricks? Some people in the crowd were dissatisfied and said, "So, can you solve this problem?" "It should be possible." What a big tone. "We've been working hard for a lifetime but haven't been able to solve it. Don't think that just by crafting a good weapon, you can win." Director Ren doesn't want to hear arguments now. The most important thing now is to create good weapons and hand them over to the capital, otherwise he will also be punished. Director Ren didn't understand what Qin Yu was saying, but since he spoke it out, he had to give it a try. After all, no one can solve the current problem yet. Hope is always there, what if it succeeds? Director Ren showed a kind attitude and said, I need 100 straight knives. How long will it take you to make them? Me. At this moment, Zhou Heng stood up and our class of 10 people fully assisted. After all, we saw hope and we had to give it a try. Other personnel did not react much, after all, Qin Yu was too young to believe his words. I need to take a look at the ore. I'll take you there. Speaking, Zhou Heng brought Qin Yu to the backyard, where ore piled up like a mountain. Qin Yu checked a lot and found that these ores were either brown iron ore or some unknown poor iron ore. She was very dissatisfied with them. Zhou Heng saw Qin Yu shaking his head, and the hope that had just ignited in his heart was shattered. Qin Yu shook his head for two reasons. One was that these minerals did not meet the requirements, and the other was that he deliberately boasted just now, making others feel that he was very professional. Qin Yu saw Zhou Heng in his 40s and said, do you have any other minerals? Zhou Heng shook his head and said, we all use these ores for smelting, so there are no other ores. The little attendant beside him said, don't we still have some ores to throw away? Qin Yu said, where is it? The servant ran to a corner of the backyard with a small step and pointed to the red patterned ore on the ground, saying, that's all. After seeing it, Qin Yu only patted her thigh and said, hematite, with an iron content of up to 70% and very little impurities, why don't you use it? The assistant said, firstly, the stones are too hard for laborers to smash, and secondly, the quality of the steel produced from smelting is average, time-consuming and laborious, so I plan to throw them away. You are simply a waste. So these are treasures. Zhou Heng's eyes lit up. Qin Yu said, but it's a big treasure. During her time at school, Qin Yu specialized in researching hematite. Although hematite has high hardness and density, it also proves that it has a high iron content and few impurities. Only a small amount of limestone is needed as a reducing agent to reduce the high valence elements of the ore and then extract steel with extremely high phase. But at the moment, not being able to grind it down is really a headache. Qin Yu wanted to quickly change into fitting clothes, but also noticed that Zhou Heng seemed to be punished. He said, Class Monitor Zhou, do you believe me? Zhou Heng nodded and said, I'll rely on you for the rest of my life. Okay, then follow me to see Director Ren. Looking at Qin Yu, who was full of confidence, Zhou Heng pinned all his hopes on this young man. Although this approach was risky, he no longer had a chance. Qin Yu said, Director Ren, I can't guarantee to you how high quality a straight knife I can make now, but I can guarantee that the straight knife I can make is harder than any of these. Other members of the team sneered and didn't believe how capable a novice scholar could be. Readers just love to brag. But after all, the leader saw Qin Yu's confident appearance and knew that Damascus was Qin Yu's masterpiece. After pondering for a moment, he said, okay, I believe in you. But I have the conditions. I knew that scholars are unreliable in their work, someone coaxed. What conditions? Director Ren ignored the others. Crush the ore. Isn't there a laborer in our backyard responsible for crushing it? Can't meet my requirements. Okay, now the backyard workers are fully at your disposal, but one thing is, if you don't create the straight knife you requested, I will never step into the inspection room. How long will it take? 3 days. Okay. I'll be here in 3 days, and I'll prepare the fitting clothes for you in advance. I hope you don't disappoint me. This can be considered a gambling agreement, and everyone present is a witness. A group of people dispersed, but most still believed that Qin Yu was bragging.